Hello and welcome everyone. Thank you so much for being on our call this evening. My name is Ash Loth. I'm with the Center for Biological Diversity. And before we get started, I just want to go over a few notes about tech. So as you can see, there is a chat box and a chat function. Feel free to use this throughout the whole call. You can go ahead and say hi in the chat box. There's also a Q&A button at the bottom of your screen, and we encourage you to put questions directly here. This way they don't get lost. If you called in not using the Zoom app, you won't unfortunately be able to see these features, but you can always reach out to any of us after the call with any questions. And so with that, I'd like to go over our community guidelines for this evening. We ask that you remain friendly and respectful in your interactions, that if you commit to something, you follow through, that you be inclusive, and you agree to nonviolence as a principle. I also want to note our nonpartisan disclaimer here. This is pretty important to note since we're in an election year. Endangered Species Coalition, who is co-hosting this call with the center, we're both nonprofit, so we can't electioneer, as in we do not advocate to elect one candidate over another or endorse any political parties, but we certainly can advocate for issues that we are focused on, and we're certainly focused on elevating these issues to all candidates involved here. So with that, I think that's about it on tech, and I'm going to pass it over to Corey Westbrook to welcome us for tonight. Corey?
Thanks, Ash. I'm Corey Westbrook. I'm the Grassroots and Policy Advisor at the Endangered Species Coalition. The Endangered Species Coalition is an organization made up of 400 member groups, of which Center for Biological Diversity is one of our member groups. And I'm just going to pause and introduce Tara. Tara, do you want to say something about yourself? Nope. Can you hear me?
Hey, Terry. Oh, there you go.
Hi, Tara. This is Tara Thornton. I'm the Deputy Director of the Endangered Species Coalition, located in Maine.
Awesome. So, and of course, I'm working here with Ash. And Ash, you want to say something else about yourself?
I'm pleased to be on this call with Endangered Species Coalition tonight, and I'm based in Oakland, California.
Cool, thanks. I didn't say I'm in DC. So thank you all so much for getting on this call. The Endangered Species Coalitions are working on the Chasing Presidents campaign in the summer and fall of 2019, and it's extremely important. And we're going to discuss why it's so important in a minute, but just a quick overview. Well, no, I'm not even giving an overview. I'm just reading the agenda. Today's outcomes are hit the ground running in 2020 with a sense of urgency to stop the extinction crisis, hear about what's at stake, understand why it's a critical time, get trained on how to bird dog, and get motivated to make the extinction crisis an election year issue and take action by helping us bird dog. And we created kind of the Chasing Presidents, but it really works well with the Center for Biological Diversity's Saving Life on Earth campaign, which I guess Ash is going to talk about that in a little bit. And I think that's it for my part.
Corey, can you talk a little bit about the Chasing Presidents campaign?
Oh, didn't I just do that? We started in the fall. We worked with some of our member groups, the South Carolina Wildlife Federation, Iowa Wildlife Federation, and the New Hampshire member group. And that is because of the states that's where the president or the candidates were the most in the summer. And they asked the candidates questions on video and or on recording about the Endangered Species Act and what was going on with the biodiversity crisis. And the reason it's so important to be doing this is because the candidates, we need to elevate the Endangered Species Act and the biodiversity crisis with our candidates. And the only way to do that is for them to hear about it as often as possible while they're running for office. So we asked our member groups to get involved in these key strategic states, and they did a fantastic job. And now we're asking more people to get involved.
And maybe Ash, you can talk a little bit about the Saving Life on Earth campaign that CBD has launched.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Tara. We're really happy to be here tonight with Endangered Species Coalition. Both of our organizations are working to make the extinction crisis a key issue in this election cycle. And although the work we have to do to save life on Earth goes way beyond this election cycle, we have recently launched our Saving Life on Earth campaign to really elevate the extinction crisis before presidential candidates and also congressional candidates. Our plan was released Monday last week. We had a kickoff call last week as well, and we're extremely excited to take this to each of your communities, really build the grassroots power that we need to move candidates and to move our elected officials to act boldly in the way that we know that they have to in order to protect endangered species. Back to you, Tara.
Great, thank you. So the Endangered Species Coalition is working with the Center for Biological Diversity to get as many people across America to ask the presidential candidates questions about their position on protecting threatened and endangered species, their habitat, and the law that protects them, the Endangered Species Act. So I just want to say this year we're working to make the extinction crisis an issue in the 2020 elections, just like climate change, affordable health care, economic issues. We want the Endangered Species Act and the extinction crisis to really elevate in this year's election cycle. So today we have 46 of our really super activists on the call with us, and this is one of several calls that we'll be having to get people out in their communities across America to ask candidates questions. So I'm confident with all of your help, we can make great strides in protecting the wild this year. So I wanted to just talk quickly about what is bird dogging. I know we use that term, Corey and Ash and I and many of us in this work all the time. But it's kind of a weird name, so we wanted to kind of break it down a little bit more for you about exactly what it is we're talking about here. So bird dogging is a strategy to make sure that the candidates are held accountable on their positions on important issues and that they'll answer questions about pressing concerns on camera, hopefully. So during the election season, you have a unique opportunity to get candidates on the record about issues that are important to you and also to influence their opinions. So you can do this by seeking out a candidate, asking them questions about where they stand on issues you care about, and video documenting their responses so that we can share that with the public. So in addition to letting the candidates and office holders know about what issues matter to the community, bird dogging can also generate media coverage. So we can elevate this, the responses you get out in the field with media to help, that will help inform the general public about candidates' positions on endangered species issues. So grassroots constituents like you can often get officials to say things that they would never reveal in a more structured interview. You know, we have the debates, they have very specific questions they're asked, they know about them in advance, but when a constituent comes up to them and asks them a question kind of off the cuff, we can get revelations that are vital as we turn our attention to presidential and congressional candidates and attempt to learn what they really think and what they'll really do about saving life on Earth. So why now? This is a critical time for species. Many of you have probably seen in papers over the last several months about the extinction crisis. We're in the 6th greatest extinction crisis right now. We've had international scientists from across the globe release a report just this past year about the fact we may lose 1 million species in the next couple of decades, and most of it is human caused. So really critical. Also, right now, we're seeing this administration is rolling back incredibly environmental protection on every level, and endangered species is one that's really in the crosshairs for this administration. So we've seen this a lot of rollbacks that would severely weaken the Endangered Species Act. We just this past week, the Western Congressional Caucus released what we're referring to as the Extinction Plan, which is a series of 20 bills that they've just released that will, force delisting of specific species like sage grouse and the gray wolf and other grizzly bears and other iconic species, and severely weaken the act protecting habitats and other issues. We have war on wolves that's been raging now for several years, and we're expecting an outcome coming out shortly from this administration about delisting the gray wolf nationally. So every day that we delay is a day that animals and plants move closer to extinction. Some of these changes we're seeking are large scale and ambitious, but in order to push them through, we need to build a groundswell of public support. So just remember that the forces that are driving so many of these extinctions, as I said, human caused, pollution, habitat destruction, climate change, they never rest, and we can't either. So we need our candidates to realize how important the extinction crisis is to voters, just like climate change, affordable health care, the economy, etc. And we need politicians who are bold enough to see this as the crisis that it is, and to embrace the solutions that match the enormity of the situation. So in 2020, we're focusing on presidential and congressional candidates, pressuring them to commit to real solutions to the extinction crisis. So now I'm going to hand it back to you, Corey.
And Joe plugged in. At this point, wait a minute, can you hear me?
Yeah.
I can't see this.
Okay, Joe.
Joe, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Corey, I think I'm unmuted now.
Yay! Oh my God, thank you so much. I was like trying to do all this stuff at the same time. Woo! Okay,
Great.
So let me just do an introduction. This is Joe Wilkinson. He is with the Iowa Wildlife Federation, which is one of our member groups, and he did some amazing bird dogging in Iowa this past summer, and he was kind enough to get on the call and tell us what it's like in the real world doing some awesome bird dogging. Okay, Joe, take it away.
All right, thanks. Yeah, when we talked last year with the Endangered Species Coalition about reaching candidates, it seemed like a natural, because in Iowa, you probably read it by now, the caucus season is really retail. It's low key. June through August, I caught up with 14 presidential candidates. 3 of them, it took a second or third attempt, and I just missed with 4 or 5 others. We had a couple other IWF members try, but missed a couple. Presidential hopefuls here in Iowa walk in parades, they open campaign offices, they hit house parties with 20 or 30 people. One ran a 4th of July 5K. They have rallies, issue forums, high school civics classes. They want to meet and talk to you. It's the way it's always been in the caucuses, especially since the 1970s when they really took off. So a few tips for getting your question asked: be persistent, be visible, be polite. If it's a question and answer, a Q&A, get your hand up before the end of the answer of the previous question. If 20 people are asking a question, you want the candidate or his staffer to see your hand going up first, so you're called next. He or she is also not leaving without shaking hands and urging you and everybody there to caucus for them, or to vote for them if it's not a caucus state. So they'll sure answer more questions as they leave. A more recent phenomenon, I really noticed it this time around, 4 years ago maybe, but it's selfies. I missed Joe Biden twice, and on my 3rd attempt, I noted where his car was parked on the other side of the county fairgrounds. He'd been stopping and posing for selfies and shaking hands and listening to questions, giving short answers. So I stood by the gate he had to walk through to get to his car, asked the question, worked around in front of him. That got him to stop. Plus, it was something he wanted to talk about. I got a great answer from that. Part of it is who you know. I wrangled an invite to my old college for a live Fox News town hall with Kristen Gillibrand. Lost her in the crowd. I looked for her, gave up, was going out to go home, but saw someone I knew who knew her. She invited me down, Gillibrand, her staff, and 3 or 4 other people. We had dinner together, talked for an hour, and I got the interview. So it's kind of not the ordinary way to get it, but it worked. With Tulsi Gabbard, I stood in the selfie line, but said no thanks to the photo op. Instead, I just asked her the question, and her staff kind of glared at me, but the candidate was happy to oblige. She'd just as soon answer a question as pose for another selfie, so that helps. It helps to tell the staff where the transcript or video will end up, so they know they're getting a product out of it. They know they're getting on the air or in the paper. I do a lot of stringer work for our weekly paper, and they feed 3 or 4 others. I offered the publisher an 8-week blog with photos. He jumped at it, and he also provided my media credentials in case I needed them, which I did at the state fair. But back to the weeklies just for a moment. Everybody, research shows that at least in Iowa, everybody reads everything in their weekly paper. Make it local if you can. The question you ask, tie it back to your state, your community, your region, the factory that's in your town, the healthcare operation that's going broke. Get it into a daily paper, a broadcast outlet, and obviously social media. It's all even better for that. One last thing I'll talk about here. There are a few other things maybe we can hit them in some of the questions, but the Iowa State Fair has had a soapbox, a candidate soapbox around for decades. They literally put them up on hay bales, of course, because it's a state fair and ag exhibition. But we had 20 candidates on the hay bale stage this year. Small fenced-in area that seated several dozen, but it also was surrounded by 30 TV crews. They were from all over the region, the country, and we had half a dozen, I know Germany, France, we had half a dozen foreign crews as well. The only problem is trying to get your question to be heard. You've got to be picked on to call, or you've got to go, if you've got media credentials, to there's a separate interview stage a few steps away after the candidate's done. But you're just literally shouting questions and hoping he or she answers your question. So that's kind of the nuts and bolts of how we found it. I got a few ideas for how we talk to a particular candidate, but let me leave it there for now and get back, see if anybody has any questions later, but get back into the program.
I think you're on mute.
Okay, thank you, Joe. Great job. Joe has done a really unbelievable job of chasing down candidates and meeting them where they're at and finding them at the end of events that they were at. So he's really done a great job with that. So thank you for that, Joe. And we'll be showing one of the videos that Joe got in just a minute, but I want to share with you some of the major goals of what we're trying to accomplish when we do the bird dogging. So one of them is really to pressure the candidates to go on record about stopping the extinction crisis. This is something that we can use later on as an accountability tool, but it really elevates the issue of the extinction crisis and gets them on record about what their position is and what they would do if elected president or if elected member of Congress, what they will do to solve the extinction crisis. The next thing is really to get the candidates' responses covered by the media. And we can do that. Obviously, we want to get as many of these recorded through video. I think Ash is going to talk about that in just a few minutes, but we can get local media, as Joe was just talking about, covering the candidates' responses. You could submit a letter to the editor or share the video. Obviously, we can get those responses covered by the media. And then elevating the issue profile so more people know. As I said, the extinction crisis is not getting into the mainstream media. And so this is one way we really, we wanna kind of break through the noise that's out there and get our issue heard. So all your help out there to get these candidates' records, their positions on record is going to be critical. And then it's really inspiring others to join and get involved. So we're building our people power. So these are some of the major goals that we see of bird dogging. We're going to play a sample video of Senator Amy Klobuchar's response to a constituent asking her about her position on endangered species. So
yeah.
Let's do that. We'll come back to you.
No, about the Endangered Species Act. I would just like to know your policy on it.
Yes, okay. I am a strong believer in the Endangered Species Act. I do not think that we should back away from that, and especially at a time where changing climate is starting to hurt animals like the loon, our state bird in Minnesota, moose. We're starting to have real issues, so that's where I feel very strongly about the Endangered Species Act. I actually got access at the Climate Change Town Hall with CNN, so you can check out my answer there. All right?
Awesome. So that was one quick person asking Senator Amy Klobuchar about her position. Now, Ash, to you. I'm going to pass it over.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Okay, so we have just thrown a lot of information at you about what bird dogging is. So we want to do a really quick temperature check and see where all of you are at. Get your participation. We'd like to quickly see who's excited to bird dog. Joe shared his story. We saw Amy Klobuchar. And so my colleagues are going to launch a poll on your screen right now. And just take a second just to fill that out really quickly. Who's excited? We know we need people just like you to help us bird dog. It's going to take an army or a village. But we know either way nationwide that when people take action, we build the collective power that we need to hold candidates accountable for saving life on Earth. So in addition to this training, we've prepped a thorough guide you'll get after this call. So just take a quick second right now. Who's excited? All right. Thank you so much for participating in that call. In that poll. We're gonna close it right now. Thank you, team. And I'm actually going to start the training with you right now. So first things first, how do I find where these candidates are? It's primary season, and that means that candidates are hosting a lot of events, just like what Joe talked about. They're attending barbecues, they're canvassing, they're grabbing coffee, even going to the local diner. Sometimes events actually are only posted a few days or even the morning of. So be prepared to mobilize quickly. Your work when you go on Bird Dog is to find candidates when they don't want to be found. Increasingly, candidates are being more secretive about their events. So your goal is to find where they're going to be holding an event and be visible, just like what Tara was talking about. If you can, have a team on alert, or maybe just one other person, just a buddy to join you, so that you can hop into action immediately where candidates are. And here are the top tips that we have for finding events. And I'll just pull up a slide for you right now. So you can sign up on candidates' websites and their social feeds, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. That's often the best place to find people, is on their social feeds. If there's a local office near you, go ahead and stop by and see if there are any events that maybe aren't necessarily posted on websites. You can use the list of town halls and other events that you can find through Indivisible or the Town Hall Project. You can set up a Google News alert. You can research candidate fundraisers through nonprofits like Political Party Time. You can ask friends and groups and allied groups and local activists for information on candidate schedules. And probably one of the better resources, just to follow the followers. So follow journalists who are covering the election and follow staffers of those candidates on social media. Those are really great ways to find where the candidates are at. So with that, I'm actually going to pass it to Corey to talk about how to plan your action and get prepared.
Okay, thanks, Ash. The most important element of this project is the question. So here's the main question that we would hope you would ask all the candidates. According to the recent UN report on biodiversity, we now face the 6th mass extinction in Earth's history. 1 million species may go extinct many over the next few decades due to pollution, habitat loss, and climate change. As president, will you strengthen our Endangered Species Act and better fund it in order to protect imperiled plants and animals? Now, that sounds like a mouthful, and it is. But what you need to do is practice it over and over and over again. Say it to your friends, say it to your spouse, say it to your cat. So it just kind of flows out. Because when the opportunity comes to ask, it's going to be in a probably a jumbled, maybe a rough circumstance. You have their attention for a few seconds. You got to grab them and get the question out. So just practice it so it comes out smoothly. Maybe some of the words you're not going to use or put it in your own thing, but that's the main gist. And I would also add to this that it's going to be like chaotic, but at the same time, if you look at our website, Chasing Presidents, most of the candidates have been asked this question already. Because of the Trump ESA rollbacks, they are familiar with that this is a huge issue politically right now. Because of the kangaroos on fire and sloths on fire, wildlife is in their minds. So don't be nervous about asking this question. They want to have the answer. And I also said that, like, kind of find out what they might say about it. But looking at our website and seeing what they've already answered kind of gets you in a prepared thing. Like maybe you're going to hear about the moose a lot from Amy. Maybe you're going to hear about sage grouse from, oh, it's still in it. But anyway, just so you're kind of familiar with what they might say. Maybe check and see if they're co-sponsors, if they're senators on the pond fin, because they might say, oh, I co-sponsored that bill. And then you kind of know what they're talking about. So that's just a little bit to get, like, that's research on the candidates just on this particular issue so that you can interact with them in the best possible way. And that's going to make, I think, a better, and remember, all this stuff happens in like 30 seconds or like a minute. So practice the question. Oh, wait a minute, I had another part, sorry. Also, plan your visuals or when you're in the events, like, so that you know, like Joe was saying and everyone else has been saying, sit in a strategic place, get them when they're walking in or out, and make sure, you know, we're gonna go over recording in a minute, but that's a crucially important part as well. So I'll turn it back to, I think, Tara next.
Say that, you know, as Corey said, it happens very quickly. So bird dogging is really best done if you have a group of people that are dedicated to getting a candidate on record and can take on a variety of roles. So, you know, the ideal team should be nimble and dedicated to tracking down candidates. Like Ash was saying earlier, you may just have a few hours notice when you learn about an event that a candidate may be showing up to. You may just get a call from your neighbor, hey, Biden's down at the local diner, get your butt down here, you know, if you want to try to get a question in. It could happen that quickly. So, so you have no guarantee of getting a question answered. So in order to maximize your chances of successful bird dogging, bring as many people as you can. So, I mean, at the very least, you need 2 people to pull off a successful bird dog. You need 1 person who's going to be designated to videotape, record the conversation that you're having, the question that you're asking, and obviously the other person, yourself or the other party that you picked, ready to ask the chosen question. So just make sure you kind of have that lined up. You have your team ready to go. Everyone knows what their roles are in advance, and you're ready to go at a moment's notice. I'm going to hand that back over to you, Corey.
Yeah, thanks, Tara. And I just was going to add too that you might think, well, if they've already had these questions asked and a bunch of people are asking them, I'm just reiterating, we need to ask these questions over and over. They need to hear this at every single campaign stop in order to make sure that biodiversity and the extinction crisis is elevated. So even if someone's like, oh, I asked that question the other night, no, keep asking it. And also,
did we lose you, Corey?
Also, like when you're at an event and it's like, and you know how, like how many times in life has that somebody said, do you have a question? And your brain just shuts down and freezes up. And you're like, oh shoot, I have this great opportunity to ask somebody amazing a question and I don't have it. So again, I'm reiterating, practice, practice, practice. And also, but like when I was like with Steph Moulton and I asked him a question, I was like, there was a ton of people and everyone kept trying to get his attention. And every time he paused, I was like, the Endangered Species Act, wildlife, the Endangered Species Act. So even if you can get one little piece of it out, because then they said, hold on, because he wanted the question, right? Because he's a big hero for right whales. So as soon as I kind of got that out, a little ESA and wildlife, then that engaged him, and then he made sure that he came back to get my question. So that's a little, when there's a bunch of people trying to shout out questions, of course it's more polite and better if they raise your hand and it's in a more formal way. But also, again, like in a selfie line or something, when you only have a few seconds, you have to be really fast. And don't take no for an answer, especially from staff, like, because they're going to be wanting to push the candidate along to interact with as many people as possible. But you just need to connect with the candidate and get that question out. And don't get frustrated. And if you try a couple times and it doesn't go smoothly, well, whatever. You tried and that's awesome. And you just keep trying again. And you just stay determined, stay bold. And if you feel frustrated, remember you're doing this for wildlife, and that should, make it all okay. I think the next person up to speak is Ash.
Yes, thank you so much for running over those best practices to be successful, Corey. Appreciate that. So after you have come early, you sat strategically, you've gotten your visuals in place, you've asked your question, the one that you practiced, just like Corey said, and you caught those candidates maybe in an entry or exit way, and you didn't take no for an answer, then you're going to make sure you capture that encounter on video. The most important quality of a bird dogger is that they capture their actions on video. We can't stress that enough. Video footage is the #1 way that we are able to hold candidates accountable for their responses and share it with the public, especially over social media. So just remember, video, or it didn't happen. So here are some recording tips on the slide that we're sharing right now. Come with your phone or your camera, if you got one, charged. Make sure you have enough storage space on your device as well to take video. Decide beforehand how you will record, if you're gonna record it on your phone and upload it later, or if you're gonna live stream it. Hold the phone horizontally before you hit record. And don't cover the mic with your finger, and try to direct the mic, which is at the bottom of your phone, toward the action. Don't do too much panning. Make sure you stay focused really on that candidate and the question they're being asked. And try not to cheer, because this is actually quite loud over the phone. And we want to make sure that the audio captures the question. Make sure to hold the phone steady. You can always brace your arm against your body. And those are just some really great tips for taking awesome video of your question. And so next, after you capture this video, you're going to want to amplify the video, right? Like, we want to make sure that the world sees this. So here are some great tips for you to do that. First, and most obviously, post it on social media. Use campaign hashtags like Stop Extinction or Protect Species. And then also remember to tag the candidates using their handles. You can also choose to forward the link or the file to local press, and share the link with allied organizations. After this call, in emails tomorrow, we're going to send you places where you can upload your video to us. So if you don't know what to do with your video, don't worry about it. You can actually upload it to us, and we'll help you post it to social media and get it seen by many, many eyes. So after that, after you're done with the video, we encourage you to follow up with your team. Celebrate. You actually just did something pretty intense. So celebrate each other and your accomplishment. Debrief with your team, run over what went well and what you'll do better for next time, because we know there's always going to be next time, and then share your success. Again, in the follow-up email we'll send you tomorrow, we will include report back forms so you can let us know how it went. So with that, I'm going to actually take our second and final poll of the evening. You just got a lot more information at you, but essentially you got the best practices and essentially the nuts and bolts of what it takes to bird dog. And so we'd like to know, Who's ready to answer the call to save life on Earth, protect species, and come bird dog with us? We need people just like you to bird dog. We need a whole army to really hold these candidates accountable. And again, we're going to put the poll up on the screen. If you're ready to answer the call, if you're interested, or maybe if you're just still kind of curious in bird dogging, please click yes on the poll now. Again, our goal is to make sure that endangered species becomes a top priority issue for candidates. And the way that we can do that is by exerting grassroots pressure. And one of the best ways to do that, especially during the primary season, is to hold these candidates accountable, get them on record, and share those videos. If you are ready to take bold action, maybe step a little bit out of your comfort zone, please say yes on the poll right now. We will help you every step of the way. We have a very thorough guide to walk you through, and we're here to support you. If you're on the phone right now, you unfortunately won't be able to see the poll, but in that follow-up email you'll be getting tomorrow, you can sign up by email. So don't worry, you have a second chance. And even if you maybe didn't sign up now, but reconsider tomorrow, you can again sign up through that email. So we'll just give folks a few more seconds to respond. Again, now is the time. Be bold, join us in bird dogging. We'll close it here in just a few seconds. Going once, going twice. All right, thank you very much to our tech team. And with that, I'm going to bring us into our final portion of the evening. We'll do question and answer right now. And so we've had a lot of questions come through in the chat box, as well as the question and answer button at the bottom. Don't worry, you still have plenty of time to get your questions in. And so I'm just going to read out some of these questions as they come in. So here's the first question we have. When trying to get others to join us in bird dogging, I need some suggestions on what to say to those who really don't like anyone running right now. I realize that we're supposed to be bipartisan, but can we just reach out to folks that are like-minded? So I will maybe take the second part of that question, which is, can we be selecting about which candidates we reach out to? And as just a reminder, both Endangered Species Coalition and the Center for Biological Diversity are both nonpartisan nonprofits, which means we don't endorse any candidates and we don't show preferential treatment for any one political party over the other. So if you're doing some cherry picking, we encourage you to maybe share the love with all the candidates out there, and just know that it's really actually important to get all candidates on record, because what we do is get our issue out to everyone, to all eyes, by engaging all candidates. So the second half of the question is, what do we say who really aren't into any of the candidates running from any party? Tara or Corey, do you want to perhaps offer a suggestion?
Sure. I mean, I guess I could take that. I mean, you know, this might be a way to find out. You might learn something new about the candidate that hasn't been covered in mainstream media, because, you know, we really have not seen candidates covering the extinction crisis. So getting out there and asking that question, you may learn something about a candidate's position on how they would deal with the extinction crisis that you never knew before. You may love them after you've asked them that question, or you might really not like them very much. But I think it's just a great opportunity to see what their position is on the extinction crisis.
Hey, and I would just add, it doesn't matter if you like them or not. If you like wildlife, if you like plants and animals, then this is very important. So keep that in mind. Like, one of these people is going to be president, so let's make sure that they're thinking about wildlife.
No true words were spoken, Corey. Thanks for that. Okay, next question is, how can I link up with a local group? So this is a great note here. Some of you came to this call through Endangered Species Coalition, and some of you came to this call through the Center for Biological Diversity. And so after this call, each one of our organizations will be emailing you with follow-up materials and helping you connect with folks on the ground in your areas. Especially if you're in a primary state, the center and yours truly will actually be in all of the primary states. So you'll be able to follow up with each of us if you'd like to be connected with folks, and keep your eyes peeled for those emails from either the center or the coalition. Okay. This question is actually for Joe. Joe, how did you meet others interested in doing the same thing? It sounds like you worked with other people. If Joe is still on the line, I'd like to hand it back to him.
Yeah, I'm on the line. If you got me on air there?
Yep, go for it.
Okay. Actually, I did a lot of them sort of on my own, but I ran into people there, who were like-minded. Some of them were people I knew who were asking the same question. A lot of us got connection. Okay, we want to talk to this candidate. He'll be here, but where? Look around your area for that. In Iowa, the Des Moines Register and the Cedar Rapids Gazette, the two bigger papers, had basically a calendar every day of who's where and who's going to be here tomorrow, even if it wasn't in town 50 miles away. There was the Des Moines Register had a link set up to find out who's going to be where and when. There was a couple lines, the startingline.org, I think was the name of it, where you could do the same thing. It just gave you just a capsule of who's where, who's there, that sort of thing. I'd run into several people that I knew from event to event. We talked to several. I'd see this person here, this person there. We talked about, you find out where are you going next. I met a guy from New Mexico who asked me directions to the next, the next event. And he followed 2 or 3 candidates around for a couple. It was like his vacation. It was about a 2-week vacation. He went to about 4 of these events. So it's just, if you're the one that knows the information, find someone, especially if they're, interested in some of the same topics, and say, hey, I'm really asking this question about endangered species, the climate crisis. And I'm interested too. Then tell him where to go to get the information next, or ask him where he's going, and encourage him to go. That's there's no absolute single way to do it, but just look around, find the information, and go where the candidates are.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Joe. That's really, really great firsthand experience. Okay, so we have another question here. Well, it's kind of a prompt, which is, presidential candidates hardly ever come to my state. I'm assuming there's a what can I do after that? I have a few thoughts about that, but I'm going to hand it over to Tara and Corey first before following up.
Sure. Corey, you want to start, or you want me to start?
Sure, I'll do it. So the first, there's the 4 states that come up in February, and then bam, 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 there's a ton of states afterwards. They're going to be in every single state. So if you're looking around right now, and if you're in a state that they really don't come to, I'm trying to think of something, it's going to be red versus blue, right? If you're in a competitive state, they're going to come to your state. But if you're in Oklahoma, there's not going to be very many Democrats going to Oklahoma. So then I would focus on your House and senators, because there's local races going on, and we know that the Senate and the House are just as important. So practice, get your mad skills going, and get out there and ask the House and the Senate, because they matter as much.
Exactly. The other thing I'd say is we all have friends and family across the country. So you might want to encourage your friends or family, folks that are like-minded, that also care about these issues, encourage them to get engaged, get involved, and help bird dog candidates as well. So I think local politicians all the way up to the presidential election, asking any of those candidates questions about the extinction crisis is really critical, and getting your friends and family members engaged as well is another option.
Great, thank you. Okay, next question here is, I live in a district that was, until last week, represented by Duncan Hunter, former representative in California. His successors are now vying to replace him. Should we go after them too? The short answer is yes, and here's why. Exactly what Corey said earlier is that everyone is vying for your vote. And if you care about wildlife, then you will care about getting this issue in front of everyone. And candidates, all candidates, be hearing from their constituents and their potential voters about what matters to them. And so in a case of people replacing Duncan Hunter, I think this is an amazing opportunity because they really need it. Anything either of you would add to that?
No, that's just perfect. House and Senate, just as important. You just got to change the question a little bit.
Yeah. Okay. Next question is, how do we find the journalists following the candidates and get their Twitter accounts? I have some thoughts on this, but maybe we can hand it over to Joe for some media insights. Joe?
Okay, I think I'm unmuted now.
Yeah.
We can hear you.
Okay. All right. I still do a lot of, whether it's presidential politics or anything, I still respond to reporters I see in the newspaper. A couple of newspapers around here, I don't know if it's an Iowa thing or if it's more obvious nationwide or regionally, but they will have an email address or a contact me at. I'll call, if I need to know where this candidate's going to be, I'll call a reporter and ask, or again, find out early, or, early is maybe past us now, find out right away if there's a central location that, sort of a clearinghouse to tell you where everybody is going. And again, you could start with the paper because the newspapers, the TV stations start every day with, okay, who are we going to cover? And so they've got to have a couple sources, like, as I said, the Des Moines Register had at startingline.org. Find a couple of those places, go to them. I went to them every day, sometimes twice a day. Okay, where's it going to be? 3 o'clock, 2 o'clock? Okay, I can make that. But yeah, find the place, find the source of where the candidates' schedules are, and just, live with that.
Yeah. Also, if you live in an area, I think it's probably a lot easier to follow local reporters and local journalists, either on the radio waves or on print sources or online sources, than it is to try to get on the radar of large national outlets, because they'll be more accessible. And they'll probably really appreciate, they'll give you a local angle, and they'll probably, if you reach out to them, appreciate hearing from yours. So actually the next question is also for Joe, which was, what was the question that you asked Joe Biden and how did he answer it?
I'm sorry, what was the first part of the question?
What question did you ask Joe Biden and how did he answer it?
Well, that was the one where he came through the livestock barn and I had to stand in front of it to get him before he went back through the livestock barn to get in there. All in know where he's going to be. It was just that I repeated the same, the 25-second question or whatever it was, and he just kind of lit up because the first thing he said was, well, I wrote the first legislation back in 1986, and he told me exactly where to go and find this legislation that passed in '86 on the Endangered Species Act. And then he talked again about, well, the real ones in trouble here with the extinction crisis are human beings. And he tried, that's again him tying it, hey, it's all of us. It's not just some animal out in the field. All of us are affected by it. But just those couple questions, he just kind of smiled. Yeah, I want to answer that one. And he'd been asking answering all kinds of questions. He got that one, and he just kind of goes, yeah, this is one I want to talk about.
And can I add to that, Ashley? This is Tara. I think Joe really is raising a critical point here that I think a lot of us are nervous about asking or trying to push ourselves up there to be persistent and get our question asked. But Joe brought up a great point. A lot of these candidates really want to answer the question. A lot of the candidates have been good on the Endangered Species Act. So even on the Republican side, you know, Bill Weld, when he was a governor in Massachusetts, was really very good on environmental issues. So so I think it's something to be aware of, that the candidates oftentimes will be excited and happy to answer the questions. So just remember that when you're nervous about asking candidates questions and being persistent.
Thank you, Tara. I appreciate acknowledging the fear and know that you actually are joining a community of people who really care about wildlife enough to maybe like take some bold, uncomfortable moves. And we're here to support you every step of the way. So that's actually a question that has come up a couple times, is how do I find other people? This is my first time bird dogging. What do I do? And so after this call, forgive me for repeating myself, but after this call, if you joined, no matter if you joined through Endangered Species Coalition or if you joined through the Center for Biological Diversity, you will be sent a follow-up email tomorrow that will include some really important follow-up information about how to bird dog. And it will help you through the process. And then you have all three of us as resources to help connect you with people and walk you through the process and further your training if you're still feeling a little bit like you don't have quite sure footing yet. All right, so next question here is, what are some well-worded direct questions to get candidates on the record regarding endangered species and the extinction crisis? And we shared one example of a potential question that Endangered Species Coalition uses. And in the follow-up material that you will get tomorrow in an email, we will send you out sample questions and the precise wording or samples of it that you can use so that you can have that exact language written down so that you can memorize it. So instead of throwing a whole bunch more words at you right now and expecting you to memorize it just off of audio alone, we'll send it to you in an email tomorrow. Okay, do you folks, both our orgs, have a political scorecard like environmental groups normally do to score the candidates on past votes and positions, specifically on climate change, or including climate change, pardon me. Tara? Corey?
The Endangered Species Coalition does not have a scorecard. However, many of our member groups do. So I would point folks to the League of Conservation Voters. They have a scorecard they do every year on every candidate, on every House and Senate member. We also Defenders of Wildlife, another member group, has a scorecard specifically on wildlife issues. But again, that's on House and Senate candidates. So I don't know. It's a good question. I'm not sure if there's one on any of the candidates, the presidential candidates at this point. So I don't know if Corey or Ash, if you know of any environmental NGOs that might have a scorecard on that.
You're on mute, Corey.
Can you hear me? Yes. Okay. Most of them are senators. So it's Warren, it's Sanders, it's Klobuchar, it's the guy from Colorado. So they're all in those scorecards. LCV, you can see all their scores on climate change, wildlife, Defenders of the Wildlife, LCV, almost everything else. Biden, no, because because of his jobs. Well, maybe, I don't even know. Maybe LCV did stuff way back when, and we can look things up. But yeah, so they're like, you can find a lot of information in the LCV and the Defender scorecard.
Great. Yeah, and for the record, the center does not have a scorecard out yet. It's pretty early still to let scorecards out. Even though all the candidates have good track records, we really want to get them on record about this issue during their runs for president and their candidacy. And this is why bird dogging is so important, so that we can actually have a track record of what they say and how they think on this. And so keep an eye out for both of our websites to see things that pop up over time as we draw nearer to the election itself.
And Ash, let me just add also, I forgot to say that we did send every candidate questions, both all the Republican and the Democratic presidential candidates, questions related to the Endangered Species Act. And as soon as those start rolling in, we gave them a deadline of January 31st to submit the responses. We'll be posting those to our website. So I'm not going to hold my breath because I know that many of these candidates are being asked by every organization and issue area under the sun for questions. But if and when we do get those, we absolutely will post them to our website and promote that through social media as well.
Great. All right. With that, I'm going to just take two final questions here before we conclude for the evening. Just to reiterate maybe some info that we covered earlier. Can we get a list of resources and website to check for candidates' locations? Absolutely. Again, in the follow-up email you'll get after this call tomorrow, you are going to get access to all of those resources, and you'll have access to all three of us in case you need any help. Those resources will have links to everything that we mentioned. Then other last question is, who do we prioritize? Presidential candidates, then Senate, then congressional? And the short answer is yes, all of them. Right now, as Tara and spoke about earlier, right now we have a unique opportunity to really, really hammer on these presidential candidates while they want to hear from you and they want a glad hand and they want to show that they care. So let's use small window of time between now and Super Tuesday to really go after them. And then after that, yes, everyone is on, everyone, all games are in play right now in order to elevate the extinction crisis to the place that it needs to be, which is right at the front in order to save life on Earth. So with that, I'm actually going to close this and wrap up for the evening. Thank you so much, everyone, for hopping on the call this evening. We really appreciate your time and being with us here tonight. Our organizers, again, will be in touch tomorrow, so do feel free to get in contact with us. Tara, any last words of inspiration?
I just want to say thank you so much for all of you for joining. You really give me hope and inspiration for the future that so many of you take time out of your hectic schedules to join us on this call. And I just wish you the best of luck, persevere, and get out there and ask those folks questions, because this is our lives. This is our future. This is your future of your children and your grandchildren. So please get out there and ask those candidates those questions.
And Corey, any last words of inspiration from you?
I would just say that after voting, I think chasing presidents and asking these questions is the most important thing you can do for wildlife over the next 10 months. After voting, of course. So thank you for getting on this call, and thanks, and get out there, and it's fun. Have fun doing this.
Thank you so much. And once again, check your email tomorrow. We'll be in touch with you. Let's save life on Earth. Have a great night. Bye-bye.